Hello, SEL Education community. My name is Matt Pearsall. I am the community manager here in the SEL and Education community, and I am really excited to be able to share with you today the inauguration of our new speaker series when we're starting. We're going to be having a regular series of community members and other people coming in and talking to us, giving brief talks around various different topics on social emotional learning. And I am not only excited to be kicking off this event, but also really excited to be able to kick off at this event featuring somebody who we've had a chance to meet here before, a longtime SEL champion in the SEL education community, Lynn Thomas. And so we're going to be talking about supporting learner variability. And so without further ado, I want to introduce you all to Lynn. Lynn, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself before we jump in?
Hi. I'm Lynn Thomas. I'd love to, Matt. I'm really happy to be here. Really excited about speaking to everybody. I'm an secondary school English teacher from Dunnville, Ontario. And I'm also an HP teaching fellow. And I really, advocate for mental health support and mental wellness and social emotional learning. So I'm really excited to be here today.
Great. And so this topic of supporting learner variability, one of the things that I really appreciated when I heard that you wanted to talk about this was that this is something that every educator deals with every single day. And so kind of hearing how this connection you found and a little bit that you were telling me about it before we started got me really excited. So can you tell us a little bit more about this tool that you've been using and why it's so exciting?
Well, yes, definitely. I'm really excited to share it with you. So it's a tool that was introduced to me through being an HP teaching fellow. And it's something that has been created by Digital Promise, who are a nonprofit organization who research and try and fill the digital learning gap. And the wonderful thing about it is like learner variability, as we all know, our kids come to school with all kinds of stuff in their backpack and everybody learns different. And we try to adjust and do everything in our programs to try and support all those students. And that's a real feat. How do you do it for 30 odd kids in a room and that kind of thing? And a lot of times it can be overwhelming when we try and think about, well, but how do I account for trauma? How do I account for social emotional learning? How do I account for any cognitive issues? How do I account for background knowledge? English language learner. There's so many things that it can feel overwhelming. And how do you put all that together? So the really cool thing about, and it's called the Learner Variability Navigator, is that it does put all those things together. And I love the fact that a lot of times we often think about when we want to do a social emotional learning activity, it's very explicit. And what I love about this is it offers strategies that are based on research to support any of the different variables or factors that affect learning. And it gives you teaching strategies and methodologies that support those things. So you can build it as a thread throughout your program, like every single day and every single lesson, without feeling like you're adding more. It's switching to how you teach something as opposed to teaching one more thing. Mm-hmm. And I think that sometimes can really, it's a hard thing to figure out how to do. And, what are those things it supports? So
oh, I think you got muted there, Lynn. There we go. You're back.
Okay, so I'm having trouble picking which screen I want. That's the one. I got it. Okay, share. Okay, is it right? Can you see the learner variability?
Yep.
Navigator? Okay, so this is Digital Promise's Learner Variability Project. As I said, Digital Promise is an independent nonprofit, and their mission to accelerate innovation and improve opportunities for learning. So basically, what they've done is they've taken research and put it at our fingertips. This is open source and free for all educators. So you can see as we move down, through their research, they've defined basically 4 pillars that are the main areas that they look at. So, here we have social emotional learning, and but we also have content, cognition, and student background. So, and then what they did is looked at those pillars and looked at them in these different models. So they've broken it down basically into kind of numeracy literacy, which basically then can hit on every single subject, right? So for ease, and because it's the one I'm most familiar with, so, we'll have a look at the grade 7 to 12 model and explore the factors. So the first time I saw this, I was blown away by this part. So here you can see the 4 pillars divided in the columns, and you can see the factors that they discovered affected learning the most. What's really marvelous is when I hover over any one of these factors, you can see how some fade out and highlight, and it shows automatically right there visually how they're interconnected. And I thought that was just brilliant, because sometimes we would forget, like, I wouldn't have thought reading fluency would be affected that much by social emotional learning, right? And it really emphasized the importance of integrating everything together to support the whole child. And, you can see like hearing is I thought it was marvelous, but it gets better. So on any one of these, I can click on, and it will take me to a summary page, and then basically outlines what the factor is. Here it goes into a little more deeper explanation about those connections, critical literacy. So it talks about why does critical literacy get affected by emotion? Why does composition get affected? So it really helps. It's like the best teacher PD out there, I think, also. And again, explains all the main ideas in emotion. And if you continue down the page, it gives you lots of opportunities to learn more. And I like this, the view measures and references. And it's a little different for each of the factors, but what's wonderful is, one, you could dig into the references if you wanted to, but it also gives you measures. So sometimes these are specific sorts of assessments that you could use in the classroom. Sometimes they're more specialized, where it might be your school psychologist or something like that would deliver and interpret these sorts of assessments. But there's a lot of them that the classroom teacher could utilize to then give themselves a better base of understanding. So then if we go back, and as I said, sometimes there's a couple of different measures in there. And then you can see it goes into what are the strategies for this factor. And before we get into there, I will go back up to the top, and you'll notice here we have strategies. So I'll show you that. And again, here we can see all the different areas down the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, we see all the various strategies, again, that have been extensively researched. And you can see just by the color coding what ones support each of the different factors.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, we can look at annotating. And again, like before, when I click on annotating, I'm taken to a summary page that gives me an overview of what is this strategy and what is it like.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really awesome because it then gives me a perfect, like a lovely example of it in action in a classroom. It also, on the right-hand side, gives me an example of a technology tool that does a really good job in supporting this specific factor.
Mhm.
So, if you want to, et cetera, integrate technology, you can find out what ones are really good at supporting that factor.
Mhm.
And as before, there's a ton of examples. So you can really learn how are people using this strategy in their classroom and find something that really works for you and learn about it better. And even dig into more research if you want to go down the rabbit hole, which I have, So, and you can really find out different strategies and what they look like and how successful they can be and work in the classroom. And finally, up here in Explorers, what's really cool is you can create your own workspace. And I'm just going to show you directly the workspace that I created. And what it does basically is you can go and select 5 or 6 factors that maybe you want to focus in on, your class needs, et cetera. And that's what I did with this, where I was given a new course to start this year. Our whole board is shifting our grade 11 English courses to Indigenous literature. And so looking at that coming back to school this year, obviously I had a lot of things that I had to think about. So I selected specific factors that I thought were going to be really important. So background knowledge, because it's kind of lacking. Critical literacy, always important in the English classroom. But I also looked at, given the emotions and adverse experiences, and it's great because this workspace, you can give annotation notes. So, I thought, okay, there's a lot of things that might be triggering just because of the subject matter. This year, emotions are probably going to be a big factor because of coming out of, isolation, etc. And you can share the workspace. So you could collaborate with colleagues.
Wow.
You can just share it straight as a viewing piece. And the strategies that it came up with, now it gives me a really great panorama, I guess, of strategies that I can use and build on in my classroom. So I know I'm supporting those different factors throughout what I'm teaching, no matter what the content material is.
This is really cool.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
The depth and breadth has just been phenomenal. And the learning possibilities, like as a teacher, to see how those things are connected and to learn the strategies that can support so many different things at the same time is just phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most powerful things I think from this is I hear a lot. I hear people saying, well, how do we move social emotional learning into the classroom? And I think there's a real high level ways that we talk about that a lot, but this really makes it very concrete. It's like, here's this teaching strategy that probably most educators will recognize. They'll say, oh, I already do that.
Yeah, like a gallery walk. How many of us do gallery walks all the time? Well, now it's like, oh, look at that. It supports emotion and it supports motivation. Wow. I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah.
Right. Or a guided inquiry. Like, oh, it didn't occur to me that could be a social emotional learning tool.
Yeah. And when we kind of are aware of that, then we can be a lot more intentional about how we're approaching it. Is saying that I'm not just doing this as an academic exercise, I'm doing it as a social emotional learning exercise at the same time.
Yeah. And I thought it was really cool. Obviously we still need those explicit times where, maybe we're looking at the vocabulary and the social emotional word wheel, or, and that check-in and that kind of thing. But to then carry it throughout the day in the various ways that you teach, I think is just phenomenal.
Yeah. Wow. I really appreciate you sharing this with us. I think I'd like to ask just one question here at the end before we wrap up, and say that for people approaching this for the first time, where should they start? What's the first place they should go to?
You know what? I just, again, it's pretty straightforward how they have it set up is just go to the Learner Variability Project. And I believe you put that in the chat for people to grab. And I also gave you a link to a slideshow.
Oh yeah, let me put that up.
I made surrounding the Learner the Learner Variability Navigator. And there's a ton of links in there. And one specific link at the end, resources, is basically kind of a one-pager of how to get started and how to create your own workspace. And it's like a one-pager, and there's a ton more examples of workspaces that are really, really helpful to see how people have utilized it. Like one teacher used it and sent the link home of her workspace because then it explained to the parents all the different factors.
Oh, that is a really cool,
really
neat idea, because I feel like that's something that's often a struggle. Struggle. And it's a gap in communication between families and educators about why are we doing things? What are the reasons that we do this? Why does education look different than it used to? Those sort of conversations.
Exactly. So, there's a wide array of ways that you can use it, for your own learning to improve your own practice, but also to reach out and make connections with your parents and community.
Well, thank you so much for sharing this, Lynn. I know the thing I'm going to dig into in this as soon as we get off of here is I'm going to go look at the assessment tools that are laid out in there, because that is something that comes up all the time about what are some different ways that we can assess things that can be done alongside academics is going to be really useful to a lot of people. That's where I'm headed.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like I said, you could get lost going down the rabbit hole in this navigator, but it's well worth it.
Cool. Well, again, Lynn, thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining us. And for those of you watching at home, just want to remind everyone that this is the first of our social emotional learning kind of speaker series that we're having in the SEL and education community. You can continue the conversation right here. You see the link to our group. We'd love to see you there. We'll be doing more of these. We've got another one coming up a week from today with Javian Johnson talking about motion management. So without further ado, thank you very much. And we will see you all next week. Take care, everybody. Thank you, Lynn.
Thanks. Bye.